I've made so many box cake mix recipes, so I thought I'd take a look back and share some of our favorites. And I think I've done 12 episodes so far, so stick around to see even more. Hey y'all, I'm Valerie and welcome to my kitchen. I'm so glad you're here. In today's video, I'm sharing 7 of the best, well, we think they're the best, box cake mix recipes that I think you're gonna love. Okay y'all, let's get started. This Mounds Cake is a new family favorite. I got this recipe from Come Sit at My Table. They share some delicious recipes, and I'll be sure to link their video below. You'll need 1 box of chocolate cake mix. I'm using the dark chocolate fudge. I'm kind of following the directions on the back of the box, but instead of using water, I'm using milk. Instead of 3 eggs, I'm adding 4, and instead of oil, I'm adding melted butter. I'm telling you, you do this to any cake mix, and it'll take it to a whole nother level. Now you're going to mix this until it's well combined. I'm making this in a 9x13 baking dish. Mine is pretty large here, thank goodness. I'll tell you about that in a minute. I did spray it with nonstick spray because I did not want this cake to stick. Now pour in that cake batter and spread it out evenly. You're going to bake this cake according to the directions on the back of the box. I did give it a little tap to get some of those air bubbles out. That way it baked up a little more evenly. I'm going to be honest, when this cake came out of the oven, I was like, how in the world am I going to get a coconut layer and a chocolate layer on the top of this cake? I just went with it, trust the process. And after that cake was completely cooled, I started on the coconut layer. In a large saucepan, I added 3/4 cup of milk, 3/4 cup of sugar, and 6 ounces of mini marshmallows. I let this cook over medium-low heat. Just keep on stirring until that sugar was completely dissolved and those marshmallows were completely melted. And while that's happening, in a microwave-safe bowl, I melted down 1 stick of butter and 12 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Just microwave it in 30-second intervals until it's completely melted. Now to that marshmallow mixture in the pan there, I'm adding a 14-ounce bag of sweetened coconut. Then just break it up and stir it. It'll be thick. You just want to make sure it's all mixed together. Now I'm removing it from the heat and heading over to the counter. You're going to take that coconut mixture and immediately spread it over the whole top of that cake. Make sure you cover everything. And I'm sitting here thinking, if you're more of an almond joy kind of person, over the top of that coconut layer, you could add on some chopped up almonds. I can pretty much bet that will be delicious. Now, this wasn't the easiest thing to spread out here, so I had to switch to my offset spatula. Well, this is the one I grabbed because the other one was dirty. I'm not really sure what you call this one, but it does come in handy for so many different things. Okay, since this baking dish was completely full and I didn't want that chocolate to run all over the sides, I did let that chocolate cool off a little just to thicken up a bit. That way it stayed on top of that cake and not all over the counter. And don't worry y'all, I made sure I got every last drop of that chocolate out of that bowl there. I'm just spreading it out to cover everything. But you don't want to let it cool off too much, because then you won't be able to spread it out. Now I'm going to show you what I was talking about when I said this baking dish was completely full. I'm telling you, it was over the top. But as long as you let that chocolate cool off just a little bit before you spread it on, I'm pretty sure everything's gonna stay on there. And y'all, just looking at this makes me want to run make it again. Oh, and I still have so many box cake mix recipes that I really want to try. So y'all have to let me know in the comments below. If y'all want to see more, I will keep them coming. And this recipe was suggested to me by my daddy, so y'all have to thank him for this one. He's my #1 recipe finder, and let me tell you, he finds some really good ones. I just had to go back in my text messages and see exactly what he said about this one, and he had said it was off the chain delicious. And he was exactly right. This is definitely a dessert we'll be making again and again. If you love cinnamon rolls, this cinnamon roll poke cake is guaranteed to be your new favorite cake. To make it in a large bowl, you're going to add in one 15.25 ounce box of vanilla cake mix. You could also use a white cake mix or even a yellow if you needed to. Now I'm just making this up according to the directions on the back of the box. I added the eggs, oil, and I always replace the water with milk. Now we're going to mix this up until it's well combined. By the way, is there a certain flavor cake mix that you want to see more recipes using it? I try my best to show a variety, but there may be one that I'm missing maybe. Okay, after you get that cake batter really good and mixed up, you're going to grab a 9x13 baking dish, spray it with nonstick spray, and pour in that cake batter. And you want to make sure you get it good and spread out in there, that way it cooks evenly. Now this cake goes into the oven to bake at 350 according to the directions on the back of the box. Here it is out of the oven, and we're going to let it cool for only about 5 minutes, then we're going to set it to the side so it can make up the filling. In a large measuring cup, I have 5 tablespoons of melted butter, and to that I'm adding half a cup of brown sugar and 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. We're also going to add 3 teaspoons of ground cinnamon and 2.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now you're going to mix this, and I think I forgot to mention, you'll want to do this in a heat-safe bowl. That's why I used my glass measuring cup. Now I'm going to pop it in the microwave for about a minute, and then take it out and stir it, and then if it needs like 30 seconds more, I'll do it again until it's completely melted and well combined. Now we're going to grab that cake, and you can use anything you want here to poke holes in this cake. You can use the end of a wooden spoon, or do like me and use your little mixer attachment. For something like this, I like to make the holes tiny, use something to make them tiny, and then do a whole lot of holes on top. That way that glaze goes all down into that cake. And I know it looks like a lot, but pour it all on there. And then just take your spoon or your spatula or whatever and kind of work it down into those holes. And I'm telling you, you do not want to leave any behind here. You want to use it all. This right here is what makes this cake so good. And if you let it sit for a minute, that cake will eventually soak it all up. Now we're going to move over to the stand mixer so we can make up a frosting to spread on top. I added a stick of softened butter in there, along with 8 ounces of softened cream cheese, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and 2.5 cups of powdered sugar. And I'm just putting my paddle attachment on here, and I'm going to mix it until it's well combined and light and fluffy. And you do want to make sure you scrape the sides of the bowl down, and if you need to add a teaspoon or so of milk, you can. You just want to make sure you get that cream cheese and powdered sugar and all that mixed together. Okay, this is done. We're going to grab it and head back over to the cake. And we're just going to dollop it on there and spread it out until it completely covers the entire top of that cake. And by the way, this frosting is absolutely delicious. If you had another cake you wanted to make to add it to, it would be good on anything like strawberry, chocolate, vanilla, anything. And oh my goodness, it would be amazing on a red velvet cake. But after you get all that on there, this cake is ready to serve. This was so delicious. We all loved it. And if I had to pick a favorite poke cake, this would definitely be in my top 5. And just in case you're new here, I have made a lot of cake mix recipes. And if you've missed any of them, I'll be sure to link that playlist in the description box below. This was packed with cinnamon roll flavor, and I will be making it again. Probably this weekend, to be honest. And let me introduce you to the strawberry pie bars that my husband could not stay out of. To a large bowl, you're going to add 2 15.25 ounce boxes of white cake mix. You could also use a vanilla cake mix for this. Then to that cake mix, you're going to add 2 sticks of melted butter. And I know that seems like a lot, but you just got to trust me on this one. Now you're going to mix this until it's well combined, and that mixture will be very, very crumbly. But that is just fine. That is exactly how it's supposed to be. I'm using a 10 by 15 for this. It's a jelly roll pan. You can use a 9 by 13, but the bars will be very thick. And you do want to make sure you line it with some foil or parchment paper. That way you can lift the bars out when you're done. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot harder to get them out without breaking them. And it'll also be a good idea if you spray that foil with some nonstick spray. Now you're going to take that crumbly cake mix and butter mixture, and you're going to add 2/3 of it to the bottom of that pan. Then you're going to do your best to spread it out into an even layer and then press it down tight. You could even use like a large measuring cup to really pack it down in there. Now on top of that crust layer, we're going to spread over 1 can of cherry pie filling, or any pie filling of your choice. And I did try to cut those strawberries up just so there wasn't big pieces in there. I'm sure this would be really good with cherry pie filling or even blueberry pie filling. And after I got it on there, I did try to spread it out as evenly and as best as I could. And try to spread those strawberries out, that way they're not clumped together all in one spot. Then over the top of that, you're going to sprinkle over what you have left of that crust mixture, what we reserved from earlier. And I don't know what I was trying to do here, but it worked. I kind of squeezed together some of that crust as I was sprinkling it over. That way you could see some of that strawberry pie filling in between. Now this bakes at 350 for 30 to 35 minutes. Or until the top around the edges start to get slightly golden brown. And you could leave it like this if you want, but I decided to do a little glaze to drizzle over the top, and that was 1 cup of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and anywhere from 1 to 2 tablespoons of milk. The less milk you use, the thicker that glaze will be. And I just poured it into a piping bag, that way it was easier to drizzle over the top. I let them cool completely before I lifted them out of the pan and cut them into bars. These were absolutely delicious. They would be perfect for a potluck or even a holiday party, a family get-together, and I can't wait to try them with the blueberry pie filling. Oh, and you could also change up the cake mix and maybe do a lemon cake mix instead of the white and have like strawberry lemonade bars. That bottom layer was a little crunchy like a cookie, and I love that strawberry pie filling, and that glaze is a must. This had to be the best and easiest peach cobbler I've ever had. In a greased 9 by 13 inch baking dish, I'm adding 3 cans of sliced peaches. Now the first 2 cans are undrained. But that third can, you're going to get rid of the juice and just add the peaches. I just made sure all those peaches were spread out evenly. Then on top of that, I'm going to sprinkle over 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. That'll just help to thicken up some of that liquid. Now, the recipe called for 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and I probably got a little carried away here just because I love cinnamon, so you don't have to add that much. I've got a yellow cake mix here. I'm sure you could also do this with like vanilla or even the butter golden. You're just going to sprinkle that dry cake mix evenly over the top of those peaches. And I did try to spread it out a little just to make sure I had everything covered. Now on top of that, you're going to sprinkle over 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. And to finish it off, I'm laying on 10 tablespoons of butter sliced thin. You just want to make sure you have most everything covered. Then this bakes at 350 for 40 minutes or until it's bubbly and golden brown. And y'all, this was absolutely delicious. So good. Get you a big old scoop of vanilla ice cream. And if you haven't already tried it, all I got to say is you have got to try it. My whole family loved this. It was so easy to make, and I want to try it next with canned sweet potatoes. I think a sweet potato cobbler sounds amazing. This is a lemon dream cake, and it was so good. In a large bowl, you're going to add in 1 box of lemon cake mix, or you can use vanilla, which is what the recipe called for. Just make sure that box is 15.25 ounces. And I mixed that cake up according to the directions on the back of the box. Okay, back to what the recipe called for. She said she used vanilla cake mix because she didn't want it to be too lemony. But I thought, why not? I'm going to go all in with the lemon. And I'm glad I did because to us, it was not overly lemony. Now I'm mixing it until it's well combined. We do have a couple more lemon things to add in here, so I'll just let you decide whether you want to use a vanilla or a lemon cake mix. Either one is going to be delicious. I'm making this in a 9x13 baking dish, and you do want to spray it with nonstick spray. My favorite is Baker's Joy. Now I'm pouring in that cake batter, and I'm spreading it out into an even layer. You're going to need a can of pie filling. I'm using a 21-ounce can. The recipe didn't specify, but in the pictures on the website for the recipe, this was the kind she used. This is what it looks like, and now you're just going to take small spoonfuls and dollop it evenly over the whole top of that cake. And I did very small spoonfuls, that way there weren't no huge clumps. Then you're going to take your knife and swirl it around. You don't want to mix it in completely, but you do want to incorporate it into the top there good. I still had a good many spots that weren't mixed in. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for 35 to 40 minutes until that cake springs back and it is no longer jiggly in the center. And I let it cool completely before I moved on to the next step. When that cake is cool, now we're going to make this heavenly frosting. To a large bowl, I added 1 container of creamy lemon supreme frosting, and you don't have to microwave that. I'm also adding an 8-ounce container of Cool Whip. You do want to make sure it's thawed, and I did add that a little at a time, just to make sure I got that frosting really mixed in really good. And you're just going to mix it until you don't see any more streaks from that lemon frosting. Now we're going to grab that cake and pour that frosting over the top. Now this is a lot of frosting, but it will all fit on top, so don't worry. And this stuff will be good spread onto a strawberry cake or a vanilla cake. And it's super easy to whip up. After I got that all on there and all spread out, You can serve this immediately, but I put mine in the refrigerator to chill. And I was in a hurry, so I did not spend a lot of time decorating it. Well, I didn't spend any time decorating it, to be honest. But I had a lemon, so I cut a slice of that and added it to the top of my piece there. If you want to get fancy and do the pieces of twisted lemon slices and add to the top of the cake, you can. This cake was moist. It was the perfect amount of lemon. And it may be hard for you to see, but there are little pockets of lemon filling all in that cake. And it was so good. We all went crazy over the Southern Pecan Praline cake. To begin, in a large bowl, you're going to add in a butter pecan cake mix. And don't pay attention to the directions on the back of the box. We're going to add what we want here. Are you ready for this? 1 tub of coconut pecan frosting. Yes, right on into that cake mix. I'm also adding 4 eggs, 3/4 cup of vegetable oil, and the recipe called for 1 cup of water, but I always use milk. Or at least I try to, if I'm thinking straight. You're also going to add in 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up. It really does help me out. Now you're going to mix this cake batter up until it's well combined. I've got a 9x13 baking dish, and I sprayed that thing really good with nonstick spray. You're going to pour in that cake batter, and y'all, this smelled heavenly. I wiggle that around just a little bit just to even it out. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for about 40 minutes. I had to take a little peek to check on it. It is just about done. So we're going to go ahead and make up a quick sauce on the stove top to pour on top. And I'm sure you could do this in the microwave. I just felt like following the directions at this time, at least on this day. In a small saucepan over medium heat, you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 can of sweetened condensed milk, and I was not wasting any of that, and 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. Now stir this until that butter is melted, it's heated through, and everything is well combined. Go ahead and remove it from the heat, and the cake is ready to come out of the oven. Now this is similar to a poke cake, but the sauce for this is very thin, and I didn't want to be able to see a bunch of big holes in the top. So I just used a tiny kebab skewer, and I poked lots and lots of tiny holes. Now if you want to, you can use something bigger, like the back of a wooden spoon, and it's not going to hurt a thing. Now I'm just pouring over that sauce. I guess you could call it a pecan butter sauce. The middle of that cake had rose quite a bit, so all that sauce wanted to run down towards the sides. So I just tried my best to work it back towards the middle. And that's all there is to it. You don't even have to wait to serve this. We ate it immediately. And of course we had to have it with a glass of milk. This was so good. It seriously tasted homemade and like you spent all day in the kitchen. And no one's gonna know it was from a box of cake mix. I'm still trying to figure out who thought to put frosting inside the cake batter. It's pretty genius if you ask me. This blueberry bundt cake is so good. To make it, in a large bowl, you're going to add in an 8-ounce block of softened cream cheese. And if you forget to set it out, you can always pop it in the microwave for just a few seconds. You're also going to add in 3 eggs and 1/3 cup of oil. I used my electric mixer to mix that until it was smooth and there were no more lumps from that cream cheese. Next, I'm going in with 1 box of vanilla cake mix. You can also use the lemon cake mix if you prefer. That would really be good actually. Just make sure it's a 15.25 ounce box. I also added 1 small box of vanilla instant pudding mix. Now give it a really good mix. And this batter seemed very thick to me, so I ended up adding about 1/4 cup of milk just to loosen it up a little bit, and I also added a little splash of vanilla. Then I mixed it until everything was well combined. Now for the blueberries, I used about 2 cups of fresh blueberries. I did rinse them really good and shake off most of that water. Next time though, I do think I'll dust them with about 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour to keep them from sinking to the bottom. They didn't sink terribly, but more than I wanted them to. I was actually surprised though, being that this batter was so thick. I grabbed my Bundt pan and I do grease mine, and I spray it with this Baker's Joy non-stick spray. Now you can go ahead and pour in or spoon in that batter. I'm telling you, it was thick. And it's obviously not going to level out itself, so just use a spatula to kind of spread it out into a smoother, even layer. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for about 30 minutes or until a toothpick inserted comes out clean. And when it comes out of the oven, I just let it cool for about 15 minutes before I flip it out onto a cake plate. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up. It really does help me out, and it lets me know you want to see more videos like this. This cake came out perfect. I was so happy. I got it on there a little crooked though, so I had to shimmy it back over to the middle. I let it cool completely before I made up a simple little glaze for it. Okay, I'll have to tell you, I was in a hurry, so for this glaze, I just did about 1 cupful of powdered sugar, and typically when I do a glaze, I like to sift my powdered sugar just to make sure it's smooth, but I didn't do all that. I did 1 cupful of the powdered sugar and then a splash of milk, and whisk it until it's the consistency that you like. And I think I did a little too much milk because it was a little thinner than I like it to be, but it turned out just fine. So when you're making a glaze, you would actually probably be really surprised at how little of an amount of milk you need. I usually start with about 1 tablespoon, and then as you're whisking it, it seems like it's not gonna mix up, but just keep on stirring, it'll eventually combine. And if you need to add more milk, do like 1 teaspoon or so at a time, just in case, because you don't want to get too much. It's better to add not enough than to add too much to start with. This cake was absolutely delicious. I will be making it again. And by the way, if you don't want to do the glaze, you can also just dust the top with some powdered sugar. I really hope you try this one. I really hope you enjoyed this video. You may also like these. Don't forget to subscribe down below for more easy recipes, and I will see you in the next one.